Welcome to Lead to Grow, which is the podcast where we explore the people principle, how human success drives business performance. And you've heard the phrase, people are our greatest asset. If that were true, then they're all going to win. It's not just about people, it's about the type of people you bring in. It's how they're set up for success. It's how they're aligned, motivated, trained, engaged, and led. Business called Harbour and Finch. They hired quickly, mostly from within the industry. And some of those people were miserable. They were confused, and the people who genuinely wanted to lead, they'll stretch thin, they'll just pulled into different directions. People don't respond to logic and rationality as much as we think. Real success takes an integrated approach and it takes time. And alignment, that's what turns effort into growth. I'm Tommy Sim, and this is Lead to Grow. And today we're going to unpack the people principle and why it's essential for every business leader and people leader. That's if you don't want to fall behind the competition. All right, so you've been leading a business for a while now. Perhaps you're a people leader within one, or you could be a future leader. Either way, everyone kind of has an opinion, right? And they can't all be right. And so you've got this advice out there that tends to contradict itself. For instance, they say, empower your team to decide, but never let standards drop. Always be across that detail. Be transparent about pay, but some things are better left unsaid. Hire slowly to get it right, but you got to move fast to not lose candidates. And so the truth is that there's a whole lot of paradoxes out there in leadership, and it's confusing to know what to apply. And so the people principle, which is about human success driving business performance, it's about how do you get to that holy grail? How do you deliver it at the right time? And so what actually enables people to be at their best? What is a myth, and what is just noise, or what is the actual thing you're meant to do? And you only have a certain amount of energy and time. So what we're going to do is really unpick what drives human performance at work, looking at one component at a time. And if you stick with it, you'll learn what most leaders don't do, which is really how it actually works. And it's a competition. When you think about it, everything's moving, tools are changing, those who adapt win, but those who keep the antiquated approaches don't. If you think about, and some of you might remember the yellow pages and how it used to be okay to advertise there, and now we have Google. There was previously those computers, the Commodore 64, where you put the floppy disk in there and you got to wait, go get a cup of tea and come back to play your favorite game. And now your fridge has way more power than that. Things are evolving, and so leadership has evolved substantially, or at least it should have. And think about the external environment, it's ever changing. And if you just stand still and still do the same things you used to do, you'll be left behind. But if you can learn what makes people thrive, what makes businesses succeed, then your growth will feel a lot easier. So let's get into the people principle and what it actually means. And you've heard the phrase, people are our greatest asset. But if you think about it, all companies have people. So if that were true, then they're all going to win. It's not just about people, it's about the type of people you bring in. It's how they're set up for success. It's how they're aligned, motivated, trained, engaged, and led. And so that's what determines if your business is going to win or if it feels like it's just stuck in second gear. Now, there's loads of books out there on similar topics. I've been testing this for the last 25 years and making sure that it works under commercial pressure. I've done it with many managers alongside them and with my own team, of course. And that's important to me to be congruent. So all of it has to make commercial sense. This is not about sitting there, sitting around the fireplace, kumbaya. This is actually about business performance. And so I've done it at Inject. We've been doing it for years. So what I'm going to share with you in this podcast isn't just theory from a book. It's been tested, it's been refined and proven under market pressure. Now, I want to go through a bit of a story, a fictitious case study. A bit of a disclaimer, though, before I do it, is that this is not about any of our clients. It's just about a fake business called Harbour and Finch. And we deliberately chose this to be outside of our industry. It's architectural lighting. We don't actually work in that industry, but the situation that they're in is very, very real, and you may relate to at least some of it. So Harbour and Finch was a growing business, 40 people, beautiful products, a strong reputation for design and quality. The founders, they were exhausted. They had tried everything to make things work well, and somehow it just wasn't working. They hired quickly, mostly from within the industry, believing that if you bring people in who can hit the ground running, there's less training. But the issues still showed up. Those people weren't what they promised. They had a whole lot of bad habits and bad mindsets. They also promoted the best individuals into leadership roles, not necessarily because they wanted to leave, because they wanted to reward those people, and what else could they do? And some of those people were miserable. They were confused, and the people who genuinely wanted to lead, they were stretched thin. They were just pulled into different directions. Meanwhile, there was underperformance. That spread around the business, and there were a few heroes who were holding the business together, and they felt hostage because they were just pulled from pillar to post. And the founders were worried the results weren't there. So they tried incentives, that didn't work. They tried pay rises, that still didn't work. They ran staff surveys, the feedback overwhelmed them. People were saying, we want better communication, recognition, career development, of course, higher pay. So what did they do? They launched newsletters. Nobody read them. They implemented the lunch and learn sessions. No one turned up. They took on themselves to implement recognition programs, and that kind of worked for a while, but it's the same few people who got nominated again and again and again. They rotated the awards, and they kind of lost meaning. They offered new perks. They thought, this will win everybody over, and everybody loved them until it became expected, and then even some people wanted the money instead. And so turnover increased, exit interviews found the same things, and the firefighters wondered if this was really worth it and started to resent people. Like, if they're our greatest asset, why does this feel so hard? Here's a fun fact. John Sweller's cognitive load theory actually shows that people who are under this constant stress lose up to 40% of their productivity. So if you're like these founders and the people in that business, you're actually mathematically less effective. Now let's pause for a moment and jump into the 3 pillars of the people principle. Because in my view, adhering to these is going to give you a better chance for success. And the first one is that real success takes an integrated approach, not a scattered approach, and you've got to do it across areas sustained over a period of time. So if you've got like a leadership program here, a recognition scheme there, a new incentive plan, and you just do these things when things dip, they kind of might make sense on their own, but they clash. They don't work together. So with Harbour and Finch, they had some right ingredients, but none of it connected. So that true progress, it needs integration, not just addition. Now, the second pillar is that people initiatives that rely too much on logic and aren't based on human behavior are going to fail. And business leaders, they love logic. It's their juice. They love spreadsheets. But implementing that is just not going to work when you're talking about human beings. And studies show that people don't respond to logic and rationality as much as we think. Now, the third pillar is aligning your people strategy to your business strategy, and this is the only true strategic plan. And many companies confuse plans with strategy. Everyone has a plan, but they don't necessarily have a strategy. So strategy being, where are you going to play, how are you going to win? Now, what are those capabilities that you need for the strategy to succeed? How does your business need to be structured to align those capabilities to function? The people make it real. The leadership enables those people to succeed. And culture is a combination of all those different things together. So when Harbour and Finch turned things around, they didn't just tweak processes. They went back to their strategy, not a plan, the strategy. And the goal was clear: deliver a premium design-led product with faster turnaround times. But their people systems weren't built for that. They were built just for survival. So they started to align everything to strategy. Alignment in action, layer by layer. So number 1, strategy. Where are you going to play? How are you going to win? They stopped comparing themselves to every other lighting manufacturer. It's so tempting to do that. But they focused on just being that premium option, faster without cutting quality. But what that meant is they couldn't just hire more people and work harder. They had to have a smarter system. Number 2, their capabilities. What do you need to make that strategy succeed? So for them, they looked at, it was client consultation, it was design quality, and it was a reliable project execution. It's not about these being buzzwords. They became measurable skills and habits. And then the hiring and training linked back to those capabilities. And number 3, structure. How do you align the business so that those capabilities can thrive, so that they're not disjointed? So they clarified the roles of people and what are those outcomes? They split technical leadership from people leadership so people could be in their best role. And so number 4, they're people. What sort of individuals are going to make that right? They stopped recycling the same industry boffins, and instead they hired for curiosity, at learning agility and collaboration. And then they looked at how those people were trained when they were brought on board, so those people could become net contributors faster. Now 5, the leadership enabling people to succeed. It wasn't about a one-off training session. It wasn't about set and forget. It was building that into how they had ongoing coaching and development. And they had careers that allowed people to be people leaders or technical leaders, so you didn't have square pegs into round holes. Now the culture, number 6, was just accumulation of all these things. And culture's not a destination. It's not something you do. It's something that naturally shifts over time. So they simplified performance measure. They reworked their pay systems to be fair. They're focused on true recognition and collaboration for progress, not this final outcome that was a be-all and end-all. And their message to their team was do the right things consistently well and the results will be there. Now, you might hear this story and feel, oh, that sounds really simple. But you're forgetting the 2 pillars by thinking that. Real success takes an integrated approach and it takes time. Number 2, logic alone won't shift behavior. It's messy before it's smooth. And alignment, that's what turns effort into growth. So you should not think about the people principle being a silver bullet. It's about asking better questions. It's about how does your people structure and systems actually work together? Because businesses don't fail because of one bad hire. They fail because they're pulling these different levers in isolations. 94% of people issues come from the system, not the people. So when people are frustrated at the work, it's a system problem. And you're the one potentially who can change that. But you got to sustain. People get stuck in that messy middle, it gets hard, it gets tired, progress is slow, and you start to think, maybe we don't need to do this. But if you can align capability, it compounds, it builds. You get a multiplication effect. Leadership starts to feel lighter. You start to enjoy it more, and that allows you to be better. And that's when momentum happens. So let's bring it back to you. Where are you in your business still trying to logic your way out of a people problem? What if your systems are working against each other, actually defeating what you're trying to achieve? And where could better questions solve problems in a different way? Because that's the real differentiator. Your competitors can copy your products, your prices, but they can't copy the system of people, how your people think, decide. So if you think about business design as building a people system and rely less on heroics of a few, you can build a system that is aligned to the people principle. And that's where your strategy, capability, and leadership success stops being luck and is repeatable. Now, before we finish, I've got a practical, quick exercise just to illustrate the point about alignment, and it relates to your world. So if you want to just take a few moments, this could be really, really powerful. Now, Teresa Amabile found that the single biggest driver of sustained performance isn't pressure or pay, it's progress. When people feel like they're moving, they get that good feeling like they're going forward. It makes a difference. So let's think about your high value activities. These are the 4 or 7 activities that if you focus on these, it best drives performance in your job. Hopefully things that energize you as well. So for many business owners, these can be things like setting strategy and working on strategy, building strategic partnerships, having high-level conversations with clients, leading and coaching their people. But what they actually spend time doing is fighting fires, fixing staff issues, stepping in to do other people's work. So if you ask yourself, what percentage of your time is on those high-value activities right now, and what should it be? And if you close the gap, what could it mean for your business, just for yourself? Then have a think about a key team member, maybe someone who's struggling a bit. Their high-value activities might also relate to leading and developing their team or communicating strategy or driving implementation, but instead, they're fixing mistakes. They're doing other people's jobs. They're buried in the detail of doing. And if you write this down and you see it, it can be actually quite confronting. But it's also liberating, because if we see that and go, hey, actually, if we just had a bit of a shift to do more, not only higher value work, but work that energizes, then that's a small part of the people principle in action. Thanks for listening to Lead to Grow with me, Tommy Sim. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow, subscribe, and hit the like button wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave a 5-star review. It really helps more leaders find this show. You can also watch the full episode on YouTube. Just search Lead to Grow with Inject. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss an episode. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.